Hello, everyone. Welcome to Rimjhim's podcast. Today, we will be talking about Life of Pi and um, the psychology behind it and how it relates with the themes of this book. Today's guest speaker is Vidhi Patel.
Hello, thank you for having me here.
Thank you for joining today's podcast. So, let's get started. Vidhi, can you tell me a bit about yourself and your background and any experience you have with psychology?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm a graduating student from the Psychology, Neuroscience, and Behavior program at McMaster, and also be doing a master's in psychology coming up this fall.
Wow, that's amazing. So you're the perfect person to interview today. So, my very first question about this book would be faith plays a major role in Pi's survival. How do you view the impact of spirituality or belief systems in people's lives today and how it helps people during times of hardship?
Yeah, so spirituality and belief systems, like whether those be religious or more personal forms of making meaning and like having your own faith system can act like anchors during times of uncertainty. So like for example, it could offer people a sense of purpose or connection that helps them persevere during these times of hardship. And it can also make suffering feel meaningful rather than something that's just randomly happening to them. So like even non-religious beliefs like faith in kindness or better future can guide people through those times,
Yeah,
is what
I
I think.
definitely agree with you. Like it definitely helps people give like a sense of structure, community, or even hope.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
and like in this case, for instance, Pi, the main character, his spiritual beliefs, whether it was basically religion,
Mhm.
it gives a sense of control in like a chaotic and stressful environment.
Yeah.
So it definitely played a big factor.
100%.
Mhm. Okay, so for my third question, the novel also explores the theme of survival and human resilience. In your opinion, how do these themes show up in our world today, whether in personal struggles, global crisis, or even day-to-day challenges?
Yeah, so I think resilience can look really different and it shows up everywhere in life, like whether that's refugees that are rebuilding their lives after fleeing conflict, or like individuals dealing with mental health struggles, or like communities coming together after some sort of like climate disaster. So like when we see it, like when people speak out despite fear or they keep showing up despite loss or supporting others despite going through their own things, I think these are all um like all examples of resilience. And I think just continuing to do that is just like the best thing that you could do. Like survival isn't always dramatic. It could be as quiet as getting out of bed and trying again.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I definitely agree with you. Yeah, because like no matter whatever it is, any type of hardship, like all all that matters is if you like overcome and rebuild, right?
mhm,
And like in this case, Pi's resilience was just built from factors like his faith, intelligence, and even his adaptability.
yeah,
So yeah.
exactly. I agree.
Okay, so for my next question, what challenges do you see people facing when trying to stay hopeful or even resilient during extremely difficult circumstances?
I think
Okay,
maybe
so
like
for
trying
my
your
next
best and it's still
question,
not working out. In that
what
case, I think like
challenges do you
sometimes
see people facing
rejection is
when trying to
redirection.
stay
Like it could be
hopeful
really difficult to
or
like try
even
your best at something
resilient
and then
during extremely
despite like
difficult
wanting a certain
circumstances?
circumstance to go away doesn't. And then I think another
Okay,
one is
so
probably isolation. So like when people feel probably alone in their pain, it's probably harder for them to hold on to that hope. And then maybe also the constant pressure to stay strong instead of being allowed to take a break, and just like feel. So I think those are some of the factors, and then probably systemic barriers, so like things like poverty, discrimination, or like a lack of access to care, whether that be like physical health, mental health, etc., can make it even harder to stay resilient. No matter like how much inner strength you have, when your systems fail you, it can be really hard during those times.
yeah, I agree with you. Yeah. Yeah, really, these are some great points. So, my fifth question is, are there any solutions or support systems you believe that make a significant difference and can help people?
Yeah, so I think community is like the biggest thing at the end of the day. So like it doesn't have
Mhm.
to be like community can look really different. So like that could be support groups, faith communities, or just close friends. Like all of that is life-changing or like very significant. Um, and then also just policies that protect people's basic needs. So like housing, healthcare, safety, like going back to those things, just for people to be able to live healthy lives. Um, so that they can actually make a difference because like they can get their basic needs taken care of as well.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you. Yeah. So, question number 6 is Life of Pi presents two versions of the same story. One that's fantastical and another one that's realistic. So, what do you think this says about how people use storytelling to deal with trauma or emotional truth?
Yeah, so I think storytelling is a really powerful tool, and it's not always like just about facts, but it's also about making sense of experiences that like sometimes just don't make sense or too traumatic to experience.
Hmm.
Like through storytelling, you can kind of like confront those things without having to actually like relive that trauma. Like for example, sometimes that true version of a story could be too painful. So like through storytelling, you can kind of preserve that dignity, meaning, or like control of the narrative that you might need in those scenarios. And I think both versions can be true in different ways. Like through storytelling, it allows people to process their emotions, their own trauma on their own terms.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what Pi did at the end of the story. He gave them, or the interviewers, the two different stories, and he asked them whichever one they preferred. Yeah.
Mhm.
I also feel like sometimes the raw truth is too hard to face, so that's why people create um, different versions of the story. And in this case, that's exactly what Pi did. It's not really denial of what happened, but it's more of like a coping mechanism. Um, like Pi's tiger story, it basically protected him from all the emotional toll of what really happened. And my last question for you is what advice would you give to someone who's struggling to find meaning or faith in the middle of a difficult experience?
Yeah, I think maybe not having the pressure to figure it out all at once, so like starting small.
Yeah.
Um, and like just focusing on things that you can control. Because at the end of the day, when you try and like when you try so hard to control the things that you can't, it's probably going to lead to more sadness and frustration in the end. And also just to continue to keep trying, but also might be a little contradictory, but knowing when to give up or like when there are signs that I guess not necessarily giving up, but just knowing that there's probably a different direction that you could be taking.
Yeah, I
Um,
definitely agree with
yeah.
you.
And I
Yeah.
think that like meaning can sometimes also come later, right? Like after we've survived and actually have the time and space to actually process that. So just like it's enough to keep going and then taking those small steps. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so those were the questions I had ready for today's podcast. Thank you so much once again, BD. Your perspective really helped the my audience see Life of Pi in a new perspective, especially through the lens of psychology and mental health. I really appreciate your time and insight. And for my viewers, um, this was Life of Pi, and I really recommend you reading this book. And yeah, that's it for today. Thanks for watching.